Why do enhanced street sweeping? Lena Johnson, Green Corps member at Minnesota Sea Grant, recently dove into this question at the Enhanced Street Sweeping 101 workshop in St. Paul, Minnesota on May 30th, 2024. This is a recording of her presentation, which was brought to you by the Clean Sweep program, which is a partnership between the University of Minnesota Water Resources Center, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Minnesota Sea Grant, and the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council.
At a sort of high level, why sweep for water quality? These can be sources of pollutants to stormwater, looking at things like phosphorus or nitrogen or solids. Street sweeping is a cost-effective way to help manage those pollutants in our watersheds. The MPCA has a phosphorus credit for street sweeping. And there are also many other co-benefits, including for your stormwater best management practices. So I'm going to take us through just a little bit of a high-level look at the research that's been done to this point. So this Prior Lake, Minnesota street sweeping study led by Paula Kalinowski at the University of Minnesota, together with Larry Baker, Ross Bittner, Sarah Hobby, and Chris Bujarski, whose name I hope I haven't muddled, looked over the course of 2 years at 9 different street sweeping routes in Prior Lake, Minnesota, which were of different frequencies, looking at once a month, twice a month, 4 times a month, as well as varying tree canopy. So what you're seeing there is the spectrum from low canopy, so less dense trees, to high canopy, so more dense trees. And so the data that they pulled over 2 years and about 380 sweeping tests is that higher tree canopy is linked to more total solids, total phosphorus, and total nitrogen on the street. So confirming something that may have been your assumption, which then helps lead into data like this. So what you can see here is sort of the amount collected for both the lower density and the higher density tree canopies over the entire year, so from March to December. And what you're seeing in both the light green and the dark green is over those spring months, there's not a single peak for when you're collecting phosphorus. You're seeing peaks throughout the season, meaning that it takes more than one sweep to collect that springtime material. You can also see in October a pretty clear difference there between the phosphorus collected between high tree canopy and low tree canopy. So again, perhaps a little obvious, but you need to tailor your street sweeping solution to the conditions on site. The other thing that you can see here, the darker blue is when you're sweeping 4 times a month, the red twice a month, and then the light blue once a month, is that more sweeping got more phosphorus off the streets. And so what this means is that street sweeping can be extremely cost effective. It's not that you sweep once and you can collect everything. In fact, it continues to accumulate. And Paula will go into all of this. I know numbers and dollar signs are really important. So I'll just preview here a little bit. For that Prior Lake study, total phosphorus was recovered for less than $300 a pound in 2012 dollars. And so the implication of this is that in high canopy areas, if you have a highly efficient plan, you can be removing phosphorus for less than $100 a pound. And again, this is from 2012, so $2012 dollars. When this was sort of put into practice, what you can see here is that, in fact, the difference between the predicted and the monitor was collecting more phosphorus than even anticipated, meaning more research was needed. We needed to tune up some of these algorithms to make sure that we are predicting properly, which leads me to the next study, which was funded by the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council and led by Sarah Hobby, also Larry Baker and Jacques Finlay from the University of Minnesota, as well as collaborators from the PCA, including Mike Trojan and David Fairbairn, as well as collaborators from Tetra Tech. So this sort of scaled up that Prior Lake study and looked at 5 different places across the Twin Cities. So Prior Lake, again, Roseville, Minneapolis, Shoreview, and Forest Lake. And you can see here a photo of the designated University of Minnesota test pile. The research took about 3 years, and they pulled 575 samples. And so the work from this project specifically helped inform the development and implementation of that street sweeping credit that Paula will get into later. The other potential co-benefits of street sweeping, and again, maybe I'm preaching to the choir, maybe I'm not, but you can imagine if you're getting stuff like leaves off your street, you can decrease the inlet clogging for things like this rain garden that's directly attached to the street. You can decrease your outlet deposition. And perhaps you can even increase the longevity of those resources because you're keeping junk from getting in. which then can also lead to reduced maintenance needs. I mean, so you can imagine, of course, that this has many co-benefits, and of course, as pertains to water quality, nitrogen, and sediment reductions. So that was really fast, and I talked at you a lot, but I'm going to hand it over to Paula, who will dive a little bit deeper.
I just wanted to point out, Linda talked about this data being from our prior lake study in 2012, and that study didn't cover the entire city, but for the routes that were swept, it is a majority of the sweepings that were in this $300 per pound range. And some of the studies that we've seen in more recent years are still coming in like in a $300 per pound type range. I'll be sharing some examples from Woodbury a little bit later. And I think you'll find that even with the inflation, the numbers are still looking pretty good. And then this slide, there's a lot on it. So thank you, Lena. Sorry to hand that one off to you. This was a case where we tested that prior lake study conclusions. We developed some metrics for predicting because we saw patterns in what was recovered. We saw patterns that recurred from year 1 to year 2, high loading in the spring, then things tapers off, more stuff in the fall. And so we had some metrics for predicting that. And we put those to the test in Forest Lake. They developed a street sweeping plan, and we used those metrics to predict. And the metrics actually underpredicted. So we predicted, for example, that they would, and they had this material tested in a laboratory, the material that was collected by the sweepers, so that they could actually measure the amount of phosphorus that was recovered. And our prediction was that they would recover 70 pounds for the whole year in one of their watersheds. And they actually collected more like 120 pounds. And they actually recovered 142. And then in the other watershed, we had predicted that they would collect closer to 50 pounds, and what they measured was 88 pounds of phosphorus. So the metrics were they were conservative, if anything, in that case. So should give you some confidence that this is not pie in the sky.
If you would like more information on enhanced street sweeping or are looking for tools and resources to implement this in your own communities, please visit us on our website or contact us at one of the email addresses on the screen. Thanks and happy sweeping.